Hello my dears, welcome to today's video. It's a different format than we usually do because I'm celebrating the fact that 4 days from now, but by the time you're seeing it 6 days ago, I graduated from college.
Sydney Zoenger.
I am now a graduate. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and Theater Arts from Mount Holyoke College. I'm one of the final theater arts majors because the department merged and so it's a different department now. So that's weird. I thought that rather than force myself to do a bunch of research and make you a video essay for today, I would take a week off and instead answer some questions about school things that I put on my Instagram story. If you don't follow me, my Instagram is @disabled_autistic_lesbian. It's a good time. We have a fun time there. And I took your questions, I put them into a document, I organized them, and now we're gonna answer them today. If you have any questions that I didn't answer here, or like that you want to know about, or whatever, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I will answer to the best of my ability. Though I don't check my comments as much anymore because I'm not like in work mode. But yeah. Okay. Anyway, questions. Yes, here we go. So the first question, can you explain exactly how college works in the US because I'm from France? Absolutely. So I know that in a lot of other countries, college and university are two different things in the sense that they're two different age groups. In the US, those are the same thing. So basically, we have grades like K through 12, which is structurally similar to most other school systems on some level, and then you can go to college, and when you go to college you get a degree at college. The thing is that we have universities and we have colleges. They're both the same educational level. The difference between a university and a college is like, I want to say size and like course offerings and a couple other things. So like if I went to Penn State University, I would get the same degree from there that I would have gotten from here at Mount Holyoke College, if that makes sense. So yeah, so when like a lot of like my European friends will be like, oh, I'm going to uni. Uni and college are the same thing in the US, effectively. We also do not call it uni. But that's how that works. And then if I wanted after this, I could go on to a master's program or any other graduate school program after this. Those are more likely to be at universities than they are at colleges, but some colleges do have further education programs. But yeah, I hope that made sense. Maybe. That's generally how it works. So I just got my college degree, which is the 4 years after graduating from high school. Okay, next question was, what is your favorite course that you took? I had like 7 people ask me this. Okay, so one of my favorite courses that I ever took here was not a 4-credit course. We have a physical education requirement at the school, which I take issue with, and I've had some discussions with administration recently. There's a traditional reason why we have it, but it's kind of outdated at this point. And I'm like, what about disabled people who can't do the physical education requirements that you offer? Anyway, that aside, I took a class my first year for my physical education requirement that was called Hiking in the Pioneer Valley. My college is in a valley it's called the Pioneer Valley, and we literally like I think it was Thursday afternoons or something, it's my first semester, we would all meet outside the gym and we would all pile into a van and then we would drive somewhere and then we would hike a mountain. And that was what we did once a week, and it was so wonderful and I loved it so much, and I learned about a lot of hikes in this area that I still do pretty regularly. So that was really fun to be able to do that for school. So that for sure. And then like actual like class, what have I taken? I took a class last spring called Pioneers in Neuroscience. I've spoken about this class on this channel before because I loved it so much. It was called Pioneers in Neuroscience, and she really taught us how to sit down and read a research paper, and not just how to sit down and read a research paper, but like we studied this one pioneer in neuroscience. We studied her work really in depth, and it was really complicated and confusing and convoluted. And we like read her book and we watched her talks for like 3-4 weeks. We really dug into this person. And then we walked into class one day and we sat down and my professor went, all right, so what are the red flags that you're noticing? And we were like, what? And she was like, the red flags. And we were all like, oh, actually like this research is really confusing. And we thought that this part of it didn't make sense. We weren't quite sure. Like this conclusion seems a little crazy, or and we started to pull apart, and we sat down with our professor And we went through everything that we had learned over the last 3 weeks and absolutely tore it all apart and tore apart this woman's research and talked about bias in research and how to look critically at research papers and how to think critically about research and about science, and how numbers are not just like numbers, bam, conclusion, but that they can be used for any sort of narrative that you want to create. And the rest of my education here has been very much like, this is the research and this is how it works and you should support it, even though it's from the 80s and is very outdated. And that was the first class in the psych and neuro realm that I had that was very much like, here's how you can think critically about the research and acknowledge that there are people with different intentions. And if you've been on my channel for a while, you know that I use that skill all the time. I, because of her, know how to tear apart research papers, and that's why I make my debunking videos. I would not have, I mean, I probably would have gained that skill set in a different way, but a lot of that came from her and from that class, and I very much, that was such an eye-opening day to be like, yeah, actually the fact that you don't understand all this research that you're reading is not that you're stupid, it's that it genuinely makes no sense. And I was like, oh, whoa, what a concept. And then we also started to like look at all these famous people and say, okay, if your research is completely illegible and confusing and overwhelming, you are not a good educator and you're not writing your research papers in a way that is accessible. And that is also a problem. And more respecting people who write things colloquially. It was just a really great world-changing view of how to look at this field in a way that I have not seen anywhere else, and a way that I use and how I've changed how I look at the world. That professor does not work at my college anymore. She was doing her postdoc here and then she went somewhere else. But I love her very much. So the next question was, what's your favorite professor experience? That one probably was just incredible and amazing and wonderful. It was also like a small class. Oh, it was so good. It was such a good class. I really, really loved it. So anyway, I miss her very much. She was delightful. What is something you thought that you would try but your school didn't have? I think I'm gonna be a little more general with that. I will say that of all the colleges I looked at, Mount Holyoke was like the only one that didn't have a rock climbing wall at the college. And I'm a little bummed about that, but I'm not that bummed about it. I also most of the other colleges I looked at also had archery, and they didn't have that here. I like really obscure, weird sports. I'm very much a sporty person, but in the really strange ones. But like, I don't really care that much, whatever. There were a lot of classes I really wanted to take because I thought it would be interesting, but they all had a lot of prereqs. And that's not that we didn't have those options for really cool classes, but that like, if I wanted to take an interesting class about anthropology, I would have had to take 2 classes beforehand to get to that class. And I wasn't gonna do that because I'm not an anthro major and I don't have the space in my schedule or the time to put those things in there, which is sad because it's a liberal arts education. I want to learn all of those things. And like, again, if you've been on my channel for a while, you know that in my videos, I will take anthropology, sociology, psychology, all of these things and put them together. And so I really would have loved to just like sit down and just take classes in absolutely every direction, and just really learn random stuff in random fields and then start to connect the dots between them, because that's what I love doing. I took a Pompeii class this spring that didn't have any prereqs, and so I was able to do that, and it was just so eye-opening and wonderful to like learn about archaeology and then see how that connected to so many other things and really broadened my worldview. So that's not necessarily a college, like my college problem, it's an every college problem because they have prereqs for classes, but I wish that I was able to just like walk in and take random things. I will say that I was able to petition my way into taking a 300 level music class without having taken any music classes here, but I ended up not taking that class anyway, and other things would have been harder to petition myself into because I have like credibility that I am a musician and I don't have that for anthro or sociology or whatever. But anyway, I think that answered that. Now that you're a fresh graduate, friends made aside, do you wish you went to a different school? That's a question. I will start by saying that, so I applied to Mount Holyoke early decision, and if you're not familiar with the college process, early decision is when you say, I'm going to this college, I'm going to put in my application for this college, I'm going to put it in early, and if I get in, I am required to go to that school. That is a contract that you sign. I did that, and I got in early. I got in like, and it was like 2 days before my 17th birthday or something. It was very exciting. It was in December. Like, you get in early and it's wonderful. So if you know where you want to go, that's a really good way to do that, though it can mess with financial aid. Anyway, that aside, I applied early decision to Mount Holyoke. However, some other colleges have early action, which is around the same time period, but is not binding. And I applied a couple of those just to like have applications out so I didn't have to think about it. And I won't say what college it was, but they invited me. I applied for like a regular 4-year program, generally in the psychology category, and they offered me a position doing a 5-year undergrad and master's program in education with practicum with massive financial aid. And I knew I couldn't take that because I'd already applied early decision to Mount Holyoke. I also, like, that college was fine, but I didn't love it. It was kind of in the middle of nowhere. But every now and then I just like think about like, wow, I would have had a set career going out of that. But also, like, I got to college and decided to pivot to theater, so I would have been trapped. So that's weird. I think about that a lot. Like what would have been, what could have been. Would I have gone to a different school? That's so complicated. It's hard because I don't know what the experience is at other colleges. I don't know what the experience is at other schools. Did I have a good time here? Not really. But that's because I don't like higher education. I don't like the education system, and I've made it my life's work to find every single flaw in the education system, point it out, and tell people how to fix it. So no matter where I was going to go, I was not going to be majorly happy. Because I don't see school as an equitable system, as a functional system, as one that should be continued in the structure that it is. So I was going to find flaws and frustrations everywhere. I will say that definitely some of the social dynamics of my school, because it's so small, get really toxic really quickly. And then, like, if you have a falling out with one friend group that's toxic, then all of a sudden every single person on campus knows those rumors about you, and it's weird. And that's happened to me twice now, which sucks. And it's also hard because, like, I do YouTube full time. I also work another job, and I used to work a third job and then also school. So, like, I don't like hang out with people regularly. I'm usually just sitting alone in my room doing work. And so that also lets that kind of culture really spiral out of control of rumors and all that stuff, because most people on this campus only know of me by my online presence and not like by me as a human, because I'm just not around. Anyway, that aside, I don't know if I would have gone to a different college. Frankly, I don't even know. I went to college because I felt like I had to. I felt like I needed a degree. That's what I did. It felt like a logical, like, of course, everybody goes to college. I'm gonna go to college. I also, like, went on all of my older siblings' college tours when I was little. So, like, I picked this college in 7th grade. So this has been, like, my dream school for forever. I really loved Haverford, though. That was my second choice. So I think I would have liked Haverford. I don't know. I'm sorry. This is not an answer to your question. I have no idea if I would have done things differently. This was definitely the safest choice for me at the time when I was in high school, because Mount Holyoke is very similar to the high school that I went to, and so it felt like the logical progression of things. But had I been more willing to step out of my comfort zone or have not gotten in here and then gone to Haverford, I will say with the acceptance rates, I was way more likely to get in here than I would at Haverford. But still, I think I don't know. I genuinely have no idea. Sorry, that was not an answer at all. That was a ramble, but there you go. Are you considering graduate school? Oh God, absolutely not. I think that my career would benefit by me having a master's in education or a master's in fine arts. But frankly, in the theater world, people don't care about degrees as much. So having a master's in education would probably help me a lot with my DEI work, but I hate school and it makes me miserable and I don't want to do it ever again. So therefore, no. But if anybody wants to give me like an honorary, I'd be happy to take that. Is it possible to recover from autistic burnout going into grad school when adjusting the program's pacing / workload isn't an option? The way that this question is worded makes it seem like the person who asked it doesn't have a choice. So I'm not gonna say no because I don't want to freak you out. But recovering from autistic burnout takes a lot of time, energy, comforts. Like, I've been in serious burnout after everything that went down with my show, and my thesis and whatever. If you don't know about that, I'll link my video about it up here. I've been in burnout. I have not been able to focus. I've been having a really hard time relaxing. Like, I literally have been like watching Bridgerton, which I, for the record, don't like. It's not good and it has serious issues with consent, but I have been watching through all of it and like working on a giant paint by number, and I like can't focus on anything and I can't function and I'm exhausted and I'm like having to set timers to remind myself to eat. Like, I don't know. I was initially planning on going straight into the work world directly after I graduated, and we have since postponed that at least a month, if not a month and a half or 2 months, maybe even 3, who knows, because of how burnt out I am. And like for safety, I really need to take it slow and not do anything. So the idea of, in my current burnout state, going to graduate school immediately, that would personally send me to the hospital. Again, don't want to freak you out, whoever asked this question, because it seems like adjusting pacing and workload isn't an option. You're saying that in a way that it makes it seem like this is the thing that's happening whether you like it or not and you want to feel better about it. So you'll figure out how to pace yourself and you're going to be fine. I would not advise this. If you have to do it, you're going to survive, but make sure to your next summer break, you have a lot of time off to really refocus and whatever, and that you have a lot of ways to take care of yourself throughout the year, and try to, even if you can't pace the program, try to pace yourself and set those boundaries and that kind of stuff. But if this is a theoretical of, oh, I'm really burnt out, I'm thinking of going to graduate school, but maybe I'll take a semester off, take a semester off. Definitely. Would definitely recommend that. Burnout isn't pretty. Really heavy burnout really isn't pretty. Take care of yourself. You deserve that. You deserve a break. You deserve space. I know that the world goes a million miles an hour and we feel the need to like keep going and keep whatever. Like the idea of sitting down and doing nothing for a month is freaking me out, because I feel like I need to go to the next career thing, but like you're going to be better prepared for that thing down the line if you rest now. Yeah? Cool. Okay. How did you avoid burnout from constantly advocating for yourself? Bold of you to assume I avoided burnout. I just explained that I didn't. You pick your battles, I think is the first thing. Like, if I'm gonna be mad about a little thing, I'll usually leave it and keep it in my back pocket for the evaluations at the end of the semester, and then let everything loose in those. If it is more urgent, if something is directly impacting my mental or physical health or that of somebody else, I will go and talk to somebody about it to try to get it fixed. One thing that has really helped me in doing that in a way that's safe, because it's really easy to know that something's wrong, go to somebody else about it, and have the other person be like, are you sure that really happened? Or are you sure that really happened that way? Or why, this isn't a problem, like get over it, whatever. And I've had a lot of those experiences. So really familiarizing myself with the Americans with Disabilities Act, with the basics of trauma-informed practices in education, and how issues with education and inaccessibility cause actual physical and mental harm and hurt and directly impede somebody's learning. I usually will go, if I just go and I'm like, this sucks, they'll be like, okay, how can we make it less miserable for you? But if you go into a meeting and you say, hello, this has happened to me, this is against my ADA rights, and it is also directly impeding my ability to learn. Here's X, Y, and Z source for all of these things, and therefore I propose that like we need to come up with a solution together because this is not safe or sustainable as it is. And going into it a lot more mechanically with, these are the scientific facts, these are the real whatevers. It feels less like you're going to a bunch of people and then telling them all of your trauma and then hoping that they're going to fix your problems. Because I've done both of those things in the last year, and I can very much guarantee you that going in with the studies and the facts is really helpful. If that's not your frame of reference, if you're not super ADA knowledgeable, if you're not super education knowledgeable, that's okay. That's why my channel exists. If you watch through my series about accessible education, it should give you some answers of things to talk to your professors about. But also read the ADA really quickly. It's not super difficult. I will also link, I did a breakdown of it on my show's Instagram way back when, so I'll link that in the description for you. But yeah, definitely advocating is exhausting and it's a lot. And it also can mean burning bridges, which you also need to be careful about. Like, I know who to go to in different departments so that I don't accidentally mess things up. Now I don't really care because I know that I'm leaving, it doesn't really matter, but there's also an acknowledgement of that as well. But generally coming into those meetings as emotion-free as possible and just having the facts with you makes those people less defensive as well, because then you have the facts and it's just straight facts and they cannot deny straight facts. So that's kind of what sort of helped me. But no, I still don't know that balance. Because I know, like, I am a disability advocate. It is my job to advocate for myself and to point out where issues are and how to fix them. Specifically in the education setting, because I have such a lot of knowledge of how to fix things and of how to notice problems. And so I notice a lot of things that are wrong, and then I'm like, if I let this pass as it is, then they're gonna think that it's okay, and so I need to say something about it. And so that has led me to yelling about a lot of things, and it's exhausting, and it sucks. And I still don't have that balance figured out yet, and I still cry about it a lot. Anyway, we'll wait for this airplane to fly over. Did you get credit for your thesis seeing as Curious Incident didn't happen? Two answers. Answer one, it was never a thesis. I've said this before, but I called it a thesis because that colloquially to people makes more sense. It also would have been a thesis had I written a lot of stuff. Rather than write a lot of stuff, I made a video series to be more accessible, but that doesn't count as a thesis. And I thought that was pointless and weird because I used more sources than are required for theses. I wrote more words than are required for theses, and I did more research than is required for theses, but it's fine. So it was never technically a thesis. If it was a thesis, my Curious Incident show would not have been a thesis. It would have been the independent study I did in the psych department the first semester, which is where the video series came from. But anyway, I did get credit for Curious Incident even though the show did not happen. I had been working on it all year. We were down to our dress rehearsals of the show. We were in Tech Week. So we had a final product effectively. And it was pretty much done. And also, I'll have more information about this soonish. We're working on a documentary, but basically, the cancellation happened because of the college not doing their jobs. So therefore, it's not my fault that it happened. Had it been like a direct honor code violation or something like that that canceled the production, or a mismanagement by me that canceled the production, that might have been different. And then maybe I wouldn't have gotten credit for it, but it was not my fault that all of that happened. And we have since, all of the things that went down, we've been completely exonerated for all of that. And it was just a whole lot of misunderstandings, and all of everything is being put back on the college, and they're working on changing and fixing things because of us. So anyway, I did get credit for it. Even if I didn't, I am 8 credits over the minimum credits I needed to graduate anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. But yes, I did very much get credit for it. How did you manage to maintain focus and drive to complete the degree? This is in reference to somebody said like they dropped out after a couple years. That's valid. I totally understand that. The drive and focus is very difficult. It felt like a box to tick. After I got really sick when I was a first year here, and then we went home for the pandemic, I really, due to the nature of the disabilities that I acquired and how they were affecting me at the time, I was like, I don't think that I can sustainably go to college anymore. Like, this is not, I should just drop out. I should just give up. But then I was like, you know what? I've wanted to go there since I was in 7th grade, and I wanted to do this since I was in 7th grade, and I've dreamed my whole life about going to college, and I'm gonna finish it, dang it. And so I overloaded all of my courses every single semester during the pandemic, because over virtual learning, I could just pick up more workloads because I had nothing else going on, which helped me down the line. So I only took like 2 classes this semester and 2 classes last semester, which is really wonderful. But definitely keeping the desire and the focus. I have done the absolute bare minimum of what I need to do to get by at this point, because I know that I need this degree to exist in the world because capitalism and because elitism and whatnot. But I learned very early on that this education structure is not how I learn, and I was not learning from it or benefiting directly from it most of the time. So I've just kind of figured out that balance between what to do for school and what to do for myself, which is a hard one to learn. But yeah, I genuinely don't know. It just felt like a thing. I was like, I'm already here. I've already done half of it. I've paid a godforsaken amount of money. I might as well just torture myself for the next however many years and finish it. So that's what I did. What accommodations did you have / wish you had? Did you end up using them all? I have a very old video with a very baby me going through all my accommodations. I will link it up here. But I had like extra time, solo testing space. By the way, highly recommend solo testing space. If you have that accommodation, please use it. If you don't have that accommodation and you think that you qualify for it, which you probably do, if you get extra time, take it. It's wonderful, because I will just go into a room and like I'll get a separate room to take my tests, and then I will sit on the floor. And if you're sitting on the floor taking a test, your body is like, oh, we're just like doing a fun worksheet. This is so silly. And it doesn't think of it as an exam, and then you focus better and you do a better job on them. Pro tip. But yeah, I had most of like the traditional whatever accommodations that exist. One, I did end up using them all. I had extra time. I never went into my extra time, but I did have it. The one accommodation that I wish I had that some people have gotten on this campus and some people haven't, and I still can't figure out why that is a fire alarm accommodation where they let you know when the fire drills are gonna happen so that you don't have to be in the building. I know a bunch of the RAs, so I've known when the fire drills are gonna happen, specifically because like I was a service dog trainer for a while, and so I would give the RAs a heads up. Hey, I have a puppy. If you could let me know when drills are gonna happen so I can not have them in the building to not traumatize them, that would be cool. So I generally knew, but like I've heard rumor that there is an accommodation where they email you before fire drills, and I wish that I had that one because that would be so great. The next question was, were you able to get a single dorm in your first year? I'm really nervous about housing accommodations. So I did not come into Mount Holyoke with accommodations. And you may be saying, Sydney, haven't you been disabled since you were 8 years old? Yes, I have. I had been handling it on my own since I was 8 years old and didn't have accommodations in high school. So I was like, I know what I'm doing and I'm gonna be fine and I'm gonna have it all figured out. And so I didn't have any accommodations first year. So I lived with a roommate and just like lived a normal life. And then my health went out the wazoo, which I now know was because I was dating a not very nice person and my body was trying to tell me something. But anywho, I fell apart my first semester, completely physically, mentally bad. And then I was able to get accommodations for the spring. And then in the spring, they helped me out. But I did not want to move, so I did not have a single room my first year. However, I did know a bunch of people who had accommodations that did get singles first year without issue. So it's not that that was a problem with the accommodation system, it's that I thought I was above the accommodation system and I was wrong. Since then, I've been able to get a single every single year. I've had this room for 2 years, not in a row because I was abroad last fall, so then in the spring I got a different room. But there's like a form and you write out like your top tier. Like I knew that like my number one thing is I would like it to be a single. My second number one thing is that I would like it to be central campus so I don't have to walk a lot of places, and then there's a couple other things to like add. And so I put all those things in there, and then I wrote out a little like natural light would be good and like this would be good and this would be good. I know that this building particularly tends to work for me, and then they manually placed me in housing. So the way that it works at Mount Holyoke is there's like a lottery system for housing in general, but accommodations, they manually place everybody before the housing lottery goes out. So it's a really good system. So I understand being nervous about accommodations, but if your disability services at your school is anything like ours, you're gonna be totally fine. Don't worry about it. If you need an accommodation, they're gonna do their darndest to make sure that you get that accommodation. So yeah, because honestly, if they didn't do that, they could be sued for discrimination. It's not the only reason they do that, it's because they care about you and they want to do their jobs and they want to support disabled students, but there's also that element of it as well. Hello, I'm editing this on my floor right now. Welcome to my house. I forgot to answer one of the questions. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. One of the questions was about, what did it say? Managing sensory overload in living with a roommate, how do you handle that? Yes. So I definitely had a harder time setting boundaries first year because like when I live by myself, I can just decide to go to bed at 8:30. But it was pretty much fine. Just like invest in a good pair of headphones, and like there's some stims that I wasn't, I was too anxious to do around my roommate. And so I wouldn't stim that way, but I would stim in other ways that felt more comfortable. And it's just kind of, I definitely prefer living on my own. It's way easier to live on my own because there's less things to think about, less people to think about, whatever. You can really just be weird and stupid in your own space. But it's manageable. It's fine living with a roommate. You will survive. Just make sure to set boundaries and communicate. And don't be afraid to be like, I have a migraine and it's 11 p.m. I'm going to bed and I'm going to turn off the lights if that's okay with you. If you want the lights on, would it be possible for you to go sit in the common room to finish your homework? Stuff like that. We had conversations like that all the time. But yeah, just communicate, have a roommate agreement that you both agree to at the beginning of the year so you can go back to that if anything goes wrong. But yeah, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Where/how did you find friends who are accepting of your differences? I have no idea. I literally cannot tell you how I made friends on this campus. It just kind of happened. Everybody knows everybody. Like you literally, if you just like know 3 people, you all of a sudden know half the school, which is a blessing and it's also a curse. So I don't know, I like just kind of stumbled upon people and just like would hang out with people. Most everybody here is accepting of differences. The question is, what differences are they accepting of, if that makes sense? Or how much are they like willing to tolerate because there's like a palatability, whatever. But I kind of just stumbled upon them. Most everybody was pretty chill, and then some people would not be so chill, and I'd be like, great, I can see in your body language that you're not chill around this, and I would avoid them, and then like that was fine and whatever. But kind of just like trying to talk to as many people as possible, get as many vibe checks as possible, meet as many people as possible, which is obviously super freaking difficult with the social anxiety thing. But like a great way to do that is to like, if you have a class right before lunch, walk out of class with the person who sits next to you and then ask if you can eat lunch with them. Like those are pretty simple things, really good ways to have friends. Yeah, literally so many of my conversations have just been talking to people in my classes on the way out of class, and then we talk every single time we have class, and then we become friends over time, and maybe grab meals and maybe hang out or whatever. So that's a really great way to find friends. But yeah, it's hard to give advice because every college, every university is going to be such a different social dynamic as well. But yeah, also like we have a Neurodivergent Students Association that a lot of people hang out in. I was never really a part of that, but it does exist. There's a lot of clubs. We have a D&D club on this campus that is the biggest club on the campus, and everybody has become friends through that. So like, do those kinds of things. Great. Worst and best thing about going to school as a disabled person. I think, I feel bad that the worst is the first thing that's coming to mind. The school system isn't built for us. And therefore, we go through a lot of the school system feeling stupid and feeling incapable and feeling bad about ourselves that we shouldn't need to, because it's just the problem of the institution and the standards that we're being held to. And not specifically the standards being held to, but how those standards are measured. So that's a problem. And I also have spent like half of my energy that I could have spent on my education advocating for my rights. I can very much tell you that I did not do any of my readings for 3/4 of the last semester, and I missed that entire section of education because I was too busy dealing with advocating for my basic human rights. That sucks. And that's just a thing that happens as a disabled student, but also happens as a minority student because all other minorities are also not in the syllabus. And they're not, this structure of the institution is not built for that. It's built for white men in the 1700s, and it hasn't really changed since. So that's the worst thing. The best thing, I guess, literally every single landscaping thing that could be making noise right now is making noise. I think the best thing is that as a disabled person, as a minority person, I have a very weird niche life experience, and as a researcher in that, as a YouTuber, like all the things that I do, I know a lot in really weird niches of information that other people don't know, that I then automatically connect dots where other people don't connect those dots, and I bring these things into conversation. And in seminar classes, we end up having really, really cool, nuanced, weird conversations. Like, I took a class first year where it was about Pushkin, who's a Russian author. And that was when I started getting into neurodivergency and literature, and I started coming in and bringing that research, and we had full discussions about neurodiversity and literature, and it was super interesting, and that never would have happened had I not been disabled. And so I think like on that level, right, there's a lot that we bring to the table as interesting people. But that also, again, goes for every other minority. It's not just for being disabled, but that's that. Also my finals. So it's becoming a thing of like, please don't give final exams to students because we all know the tests don't measure intelligence, whatever. So that's been changing, which has been wonderful. But as a result of that, it's been a lot of, hey, write a paper, hey, whatever. And I can usually twist those things into being about my special interest, usually in relating it to disability. And so that's really fun because the majority of the professors that I have don't know much about disability studies, and so then I can write a really good paper or make a really good video that is about disability and X, Y, and Z topic, and do minimum research and otherwise connected to all of the research I've already done for my work and for my life and whatever. And they're like, this is innovative. You did so much work for this and you found so many things. And I'm like, yes, I spend hours on it. Highly recommend. Somebody said any unexpected joys, and gosh, it's been a rough 4 years, my guy. Joys. We have baby goslings every spring on campus, and I really love watching them grow up. I really love I love hearing the geese all around all the time. Even when they're annoying and they're screaming at 3 a.m., I just kind of enjoy that. This campus is gorgeous, and I love walking around it, and I wish that I did that more. The little shops across the street are also adorable. I discovered literally 4 days ago that there's an ice cream place over there that has been there the whole year, and I've missed it. I've missed the ice cream place all year. This is horrible. So I went there like every single day in the last week because I was like, I miss out on all the ice cream that I should have been eating. So that, it's a beautiful area, and a lot of the professors are really wonderful here as well. And once I went to the right people in administration, they seemed really genuinely interested in helping and changing and making things more accessible. I'm frustrated that I didn't get to that point to finding those right people until after those were the people who had to help shut down my show, and then I met with them about changing the college in the last week of my time here, and then they immediately started making changes, like literally during that meeting. And I was like, wow, if I had found you 4 years ago, my experience here would have been completely different. But I do love that they were willing to listen, and that there's a lot of maturity and growth and stuff that I saw from people in administration, which is rare. So I think that's an unexpected joy. Also, just like being able to be at a big institution and be able to facilitate change and watch that actually happen in real time is also pretty cool. So yeah, I had a rough time. Not gonna lie about it. Like, it was literally every single semester here I've had some major setback, whether that's due to a certain person or other things. It's just been a rough 4 years, and I'm not gonna lie about that, but there's definitely a lot to be proud of, and I worked really hard, and I did graduate, and that's pretty cool. I just got really deep. Anyway, the last question was, are you decorating your graduation cap, and if so, what's the design? And I put that last because I didn't want to show you. So, this is my graduation cap. Let me get it so you can see. I'm also gonna probably post this on my Instagram with the explanation of all of it, but so the lavender tassel, we got lavender tassels, queer students. So I'm a queer, so I got a lavender tassel. The text says, we're doing something no one's even tried, and yes, we're terrified, but watch what happens, in like American typewriter font. That is a line from Watch What Happens Reprise from Newsies. If you have been following me, actually, I don't know how much I posted about it because I didn't want to post about how bad everything was going with Curious Incident, but as things were falling apart, not even just that, most of last semester, when we were feeling frustrated about the show and about how we were trying to do the right thing, and we were consistently being told that we were bad people for doing the right thing, and just like fighting our advisors, and then fighting other students, and then fighting up the administration chain, and then fighting up someone else in administration, and having all of the support from outside of the college and absolutely none of it from within the college was really difficult. And we were like, it really felt like a David and Goliath situation. And to cope, we all, my co-director and I, started listening to Newsies like obsessively, because if you're not familiar with Newsies, it's originally a movie, but it's also like a Disney musical. But it's like really dark for a Disney musical. And it's about the newspaper, the Newsboys strike of 1899. And about a bunch of kids basically who were able to change the world, and that it wasn't always easy, and that they struggled. And that like at the beginning everybody was like, yeah, let's do the right thing. And then they realized that actually took energy and time, and potentially burning bridges, and potentially losing jobs, and potentially getting hurt or in trouble or whatever. And then they all, like, most of them quit and backed out. And then it was just a handful of them who were there and really trying, and got absolutely bowled over a couple times and really struggled. And yet they managed to pull it together, and they managed to win at the end of the day. So like that meant a lot to us because that was our story, very much so. And throughout the whole course of the process, when something bad would happen or whatever, we would like say where we were in the timeline of Newsies to make ourselves feel better. Anyway, sorry, that was long. Watch What Happens Reprise is right before they start to actually, it's like they like everything is terrible, and they're like, we're gonna give up, and this is when they decide to not give up and to really work to make things better. And just the line, we're doing something no one's even tried, and yes, we're terrified, but watch what happens, is the one that we'd been quoting for a long time. So I put it on my cap. And then there's text underneath it that looks like newspaper. This is the letters that we used. They're Christopher's letters from his mom in the show. And it specifically says, Dear Christopher, like right here, right under the center, so that you can see that. And then around the edges, there's a navy blue border, and that matches with the same stuff that has two butterflies that are glued on either side. They're origami butterflies. The This material is the blue gels that we use to make our lights blue in the show, that I bought for the show, and because we didn't have enough at the school, and so I took some of them and turned them into pieces for my cap. And then the yellow flowers and all the corners and on the center are from the hairpiece that I wore at Convocation. Yellow is my favorite color. Yellow is also my class color, and Convocation is like the first event that we had as seniors. It's like one of the first things you do when you come on campus, also like every single year, but then we had it as seniors. So this is what I wore at my senior Convocation. But yeah, and the butterflies reference like growing up over time, but also my album that came out last fall. Yeah, on my 20th birthday, Rewrite History, had the butterfly motif going through it. So it's basically, that represents all of my first 2 years, and then the rest of this with the Curious Incident stuff represents the end of my time here. So anyway, that's really metaphorical and a lot. You can tell that I'm a costume designer by brain. But I'm really proud of it, and I'm really excited about it, and I cried a lot making it, but it means a lot to me, and that's my cap. And then clothing wise, again, I'm a costumer, so you don't care about this, but I care, so I'm telling you. So my graduation dress is this. It's from Ivy City, and it is navy blue, and it has stars on it because we're keeping the Curious Incident stars, space, going to the moon, you know, that energy alive. And then we also have an event where everybody wears all white during that event. My high school, everybody wore all white on their graduation day, so I'm using that dress again, so I have my high school graduation also as a part of this. I've just been kind of connecting all of these little pieces as much as I can to round out my journey here and my life journey and all of this stuff. Again, even though I like don't care that much, but like I do, I don't know. I'm just a sentimental person. But anyway, that was all your questions. I'm sorry this was longer than expected, but I got rambly. I hope that you learned something. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Yeah, thanks for being here for along my entire journey. I started YouTube the spring of my second year here, so it very much is intertwined with my experience at this college. Also, the amount of videos of mine that are direct results of something going wrong in one of my classes is far too many. So I don't know what I'm gonna do for inspiration after this. I'm gonna have lost it because I'm not gonna have things to complain about. Or I will, but they're gonna be in a completely different category. Anyway, yeah, that's my video. Thank you for sticking around. Thanks for asking your questions. Yay, we graduated, we did it. And I will see you, my dear, in the next one.